Everybody, welcome back to another Real Talk podcast. We are coming at you with a roundup with the normal crew of myself, Tyler, and John. So we've had kind of an interesting trio of episodes here. Not so much related to each other, but each unique and I think fascinating in their own right. So today we'll be talking about, let's see here, we'll be talking about Indonesia and the gospel. That was an episode I did with Reverend Ethan. And then we did an episode about Dordt University, and then as kind of a rejoinder to that as well, I interviewed Dr. Justin Bailey from Dordt, and we talked all about his book, which has to do with the theology of culture, which in and of itself was quite fascinating. And then finally, this is probably the most spicy of the three. We talked about real estate with Brent Vanderwood and Mark Cricky, two guys very much involved in the real estate world. So that was a lot of fun. A lot of interesting parts to come out of these episodes. So I think I'll throw it over to you, Ty, first to get us going here. Episode 83, Indonesia and the Gospel. Reverend Ethan, some of your thoughts coming out of that one. I think it was fairly entertaining. It's an interesting man.
Yeah, it was entertaining. I liked that you did it in person. I think that really worked with Reverend Ethan. That was definitely an interesting guy. Seen a lot, obviously, and like crazy life experiences. But yeah, one thing that stood out to me is he highlighted a lot of different things, but one that stuck out to me is when I appreciate the emphasis he puts on like the Holy Spirit in his life and in mission work and stuff. Even like stressing that for us, even in a country like Canada or the US, to appreciate God's work in your life and the Holy Spirit, and how the Holy Spirit really like is working in us. I think you hear testimony a lot from like foreign missionaries. Like Indonesia is pretty common to hear like stories about, yeah, like not even just like voodoo, but like spirit, the spirit world, the spirit realm, and that being very real in his life. It's interesting to hear these missionaries talk about that, because you understand that there is something going on beyond what we see every day. And to hear him talk about, like praying over people, and yeah, I've heard other testimonies from other people of like things that you would just attribute to like be a miracle. And him attributing that to an actual battle of Satan and the spirit is pretty fascinating. It makes you think about like your day-to-day life, and even like the mundane things that happen, that you're saved from a car crash, and little things that might just pass us by, to really reflect on that. And then also the power of prayer in that part of your life, right? Like he mentioned, like, yeah, just pray whenever you're in a moment where you're struggling and stuff. Like that is actually powerful, and you can hear it in him that really has touched him in his life and in his ministry. So yeah, pretty cool to hear him describing those things.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It was very powerful. Go ahead, John.
Well, it's just in particular when the high school class gets possessed, and is writhing on the ground, and comes back and prays over them, and then everything's okay again. It does remind me that people on the edge, and we're often a little bit more comfortable and a little bit in a safe zone. But you hear this with people who are doing like a more abortion ministry, who are doing evangelism to I don't know, Mormons or something like that, where they're just in a pressing need for something beyond themselves. I experienced a little bit along those lines when I was running for office, just always being able to have the words that I needed, and that's not always me. So just being able to, as a young man, respond to people when we're on the edge. Those guys are on the edge all the time, and so the Lord is equipping them in special ways. It kind of reminds me that maybe I got to put myself in uncomfortable situations and just rely on the Lord. I always am, but in those situations, I know it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's a fear in us, I think, that's like you're not always ready to stick your neck out, whereas these guys, they don't ever pull their neck back in. So it's kind of like yeah, they're always out there, which is, yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, they're on the edge all the time. So you can tell it really is like deepens their faith. And they have, I don't know if it's stronger, but yeah, it's robust. They know what God can do for them very like in a very real sense in their lives. Probably in a way that many, yeah, I feel like many of us in North America can't or haven't fully experienced probably. So I
Mhm.
thought that was cool. The other interesting, or yeah, the other theme that probably came out of there a bunch, and we'll actually have an episode coming out with RP's very own Mark Penning on this topic in a number of weeks, is the call to be fruitful and to multiply. He was very big on that, both
Yeah.
in podcast, in studio, outside. It's a theme he hits home on all the time. So I
What
thought
was
that
it,
was
13
great.
kids?
He only has seven. I thought
But he
he'd be
wanted
probably
13?
yeah, he wanted 13. Yeah, his wife didn't work out quite that way, but yeah, big goals that way. So it's good. I think it's a healthy pressure in that regard from him because I don't know. We'll Mark and I get into it in this episode that will be released in a few weeks, but it's very much a trend to have less and less kids, which I think everyone's aware of. But underpopulation is about to be a big problem in the next few decades in this world. So that's an interesting point to hear from a guy on the mission field for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then his dating advice was a point of contention between the two of you a little bit, but I think you guys agreed more than you disagreed, because both of you were talking about some version of intentional dating as opposed to just casual dating with a um, aim to get married as opposed to just get to know each other. You were talking about dating to get to know whether you wanted to get married, but there was still that in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the way he said it at first, I misunderstood it, or we weren't on the same track. But I think yeah, we definitely came together and agreed on that mostly. But it was interesting to hear him state that because my mind immediately goes to like, oh, like when you're young, or ever in high school, and you're in the friend zone or something with a girl, like you're not
Yeah,
you don't want to do that. It's a bad place to be. Like you want
got
to
to get
make
out
your
of the
intentions clear.
yeah.
So I don't think that's what he was going for. So
And now, as a parent, the piece of advice that he offered best, that I now love best, was before you go too far, really get to know their parents. And I'm
yes,
like, that is great advice. That is spectacular. Go with that. So
yeah,
Yeah, that's
I
true.
like.
I mean, his parenting advice was interesting too, that he sent his son out to another village for a couple weeks. Like that was yeah, man, that's
yeah,
a bit interesting. I would I'm about to send my kids into the backyard for a couple weeks. Just if you come back, then you'll be a man. But it's yeah, it was an approach.
yes, yeah, it's
Free range, they call that.
yeah. Good kick in the pants. I'm still wondering whether to let my kid bike to school that's like 20 blocks away. So yes, I should let my kid go bike to school. So
Good, good. All right. I think we'll leave the Deaton one there. So moving on to the Dort episode. So yeah, just to be fully upfront, I think we probably should have split this into two episodes because it was so yeah, it was a bit of a change in the middle, but it kind of just the way the scheduling worked out, it just this is what we ended up doing. But in hindsight, there's a lot of gold. Well, the first part is good. I'm not trying to take away from that, but it was more of just an exposure to what Dort is about, which we got into some good questions, I think, and I was able to press them on their creation stance too, which I hope was helpful for people to see where Dort landed. But then we ended up talking about his Professor Bailey's book in the latter portion of the podcast, which was yeah, I thought it'd be a great book. Just very thought provoking that way. John, I know you enjoyed this episode a lot. What were some of your thoughts? Maybe starting with the Dort section, then we'll get into the book a bit after that.
yeah. No, I appreciated you pushing them on creation, because that is an area that needed clarification. And I will say their first go at an answer, I'm not saying that they were being at all evasive, but you needed to ask them another question, and you did, because they were talking about what they didn't do. They don't adopt any naturalistic idea of evolution. And for clarification, what's a naturalistic idea of creation? That's creation without anything supernatural. Okay, so they're not going to adopt an evolution without God. okay, we're getting somewhere. But then where it kept going was the overall idea of healthy discussion. They aren't going to try and deconstruct somebody who comes in with a 6-day creation. Okay, thank you, appreciate that. But I want to go to a Christian university to get encouraged and equipped to defend that. Well, I wasn't quite getting that feel here. I won't be attacked for it is kind of what I was getting. And overall, I'd say I just wrote an editorial on this. If you're going to get the overall position of Dordt, what it came off for me was the issue doesn't really matter. If you're going to talk about healthy discussion on campus about sexuality, really, about gender, really, no, you can't do that. Those matter. You got to have a certain position on those. And then they said, well, as long as it starts with God and goes from there. Okay, well, my question really would be, which God? Because that's why the issue of origins matters. We have one side saying that when God said this is good and very good, what he meant was, a process that took 6 days, and all this sprung into being at his word. But the other side is saying very good meant a process of death and destruction and eons of disease and tooth and claw, and that was very good. And when God comes to restore again, to make it all new and good once more, what is he going to do? If all that was good, we get to a very different idea of who God is. So the two sides here, I would say, are not creation and evolution. They're more along the lines of, does this matter or does it not? And Dordt falls kind of towards not so much. It's not a central issue. And as I'm talking, you can tell where I fall. So yeah, it even Dr. Justin Bailey later talked about just God's goodness. This informs your understanding of God's goodness. Now, thankfully, people can have confused views on the first few chapters of Genesis and take the whole of the rest of the Bible very seriously. And that is the impression I was getting with all the rest of the discussion, right? But I will say, if I'm going to university, this is something I know I'm going to go out in the world to get attacked on this. Please, this is why I'd want to go there. So it sounds like they have some profs who are 6-day creationists. That would be something I'm very interested in, what classes they're teaching, who they are, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely struck me as, like you say, more neutral, if not a slight bias toward like theistic evolution or some variant of that at least. But yeah, it is important. And I did read your op-ed, your article on that the other day, and I thought it definitely woke me up a little bit, because it's easy enough to get lulled into a sense of like, all right, whatever, like, I believe in 6-day creation, sure, but like if someone else doesn't, they're still going to come up with a lot of other good material, which is true. Like the Dr. Bailey's book is fantastic. I'm not exactly sure what his personal stance is on the creation issue, but yeah, if you're going to go to school and get a fulsome education in a Christian university, I totally agree with you. I think you should be able to see that 6-day creation put it in a positive light and be able to defend it properly. It should be, but I think the reason they don't is because they don't all believe in it. So then why would you defend it?
Yep.
But that is one thing where I want to just take it a little bit beyond just even the origins issue, because if we are discussing things like gender, then if you have adopted a theistic evolution position and you work it out consistently, then at some point, our ancestors did not have two genders. And then we evolved to have two. And now in the gender wars, where we're saying, no, there's two. Well, why would we be so firm on that? Why would we be so sure about that? How do we know that we're not evolving into yet a new and further and maybe better state? And well, that's nonsense. The Bible says this. Okay, thank you. Thank you for going there. And I appreciate that. But I'm going to say, stick with that all the way through. You can know we have two genders because Genesis 1:27-28. That's really important text.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciated that you pushed him on the faculty question, because the students is one thing, right? Like to have kids come from all over the place, and have different views on something like this. But the faculty is it kind of struck me. It was, yeah, I was a little actually disappointed in that they couldn't. I mean, you weren't looking for an exact stat on how many, of their faculty believe one thing or the other, or they know that, but clearly the faculty goes through a series of questions or interviews and stuff to determine the status of their faith before they are allowed to teach at Dordt. And they're very, consistent with that. And obviously that's very important to them. But then the evolution creation question, like that was just not on their radar. Like they just didn't seem to care one way or the other. So like not having that stat, is fine in one, in one side of it, but also, that's a bit concerning, if that's what you're looking for, obviously in university. So yeah, I mean, I thought Redeemer, when we talked to the guys at Redeemer, they were a little bit harder on this issue than Dordt was, but it's one of those things. I think like a university, especially a Christian university, really needs to get this right. Otherwise you end up with like in university, there's so many questions. They're supposed to be like, it's supposed to be a place where everyone's asking things and figuring things out and thinking and talking. And if you don't get the building blocks of that right, then yeah, like what Jon said, like you're just asking for it like down the road, right, in your classes. And yeah, it might be harder to find staff, but it's also something that's really important. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything else in the evolution thing, Jon. I mean, other than everything, but
No, I did think, just sticking with the Dordt for a bit, I also appreciated the discussion that you had with him about the value of going to a Christian university, because that's just got to be a topic that we're working through. It shouldn't be an assumptive. If you're going, you better know why you're going. It's because it's a huge investment. So go, but be stewardly.
I was blown away by the expense in the States. I thought university here was crazy. I thought like, I don't know, I'd probably drop $50,000. Well, I guess Canadian, which is less American. But that was over 4 years, and these guys are asking for that every year, it sounds like. So that's
and you also dropped, you're probably working part-time, but you also dropped a number of years worth of income that you could have been making.
Yeah, I like that you asked them about just university in general. That was like is it really worth going? And they seem to have the opinion that it's worth it more than ever. And it's I think you were gracious in your acceptance of that. But being a guy who didn't go to university, yeah, I'm still very I find it very hard to recommend somebody go to university. I mean, Christian universities are definitely making strides. I think they're trying really hard to combat that, the disaster that is just a regular public university. But I mean, it's still something to me that's not very obvious, why it's so valuable in today's culture.
It's so dependent on the person too, which I think we talked about a bit, but yeah, like
well, the subject of study and stuff too, right? But
that too, yeah. But there's so many resources out there for free or for very much lower cost than what you would have at university, right? If you're a disciplined person, you can go out and get that education. But
it used to be like an extension of high school where it allowed you to delay growing up and like help you learn and figure out what you wanted to do. But it's so unaffordable to do that. And if you're not ready for what that is going to bring in university, like from a faith perspective, from like you need to have that critical thinking before you enter a university. And that's what it was supposed to teach you before, like how to read and write and think and talk, and like how to think critically about everything you hear. And now it seems like you have to have that before you go, or you're just like, you're doomed. Like, so, I mean, a Christian university is definitely, it's helping the situation where maybe you can come out of high school and be a little bit more immature and still do fine. But you got to be really aware of what you're doing these days. So
I feel like we got to do a plug for university now, just because we've been so hard on it. So.
It's yeah, it is worth it, but also I think the onus is just like on the parents or the teachers, like in the school system. Like you got to get to kids young, and you got to teach them these critical thinking skills as early as possible, because the world's coming at you every day through your phone and the TV and whatnot. So it's yeah, it's not a moot point about this whole discussion, but like the battle is being engaged far before the university comes into play. So
Okay. Can I segue to Justin Bailey just on that point?
absolutely.
Well, it's just one of the many things he brought up in his book. What was it? What's the title of his book again?
Oh, I have it right
Interpreting
here.
your world.
Yes.
Say that again.
Yep. Interpreting Your World: Five
Okay.
Lenses for Engaging Theology and Culture.
Yeah, he was talking about bubbles and just preparation at one point, and just he called it a boot camp bubble. You know, you got to be in boot camp, just you and yourselves. You can't, other people can't just wander into boot camp, but you got that to get ready, to get prepared, versus, you know, the country club bubble, he called it, where they keep people out. The bubble is meant to keep people out. And I was just thinking, we do have bubbles, protective bubbles, sheltering bubbles, but then that idea of being ready to go out in the big world, when you're 18, whether you're going to university or whether you're going to a job, you got to be ready. And so we need a little bit more of that boot camp bubble idea in our schooling system, in our high schools, and all the way down, because it isn't just at university where you're going to get tested. You're going to get tested heading out into the wide world. And are we ready to engage? Are we ready to speak once you graduate? I don't know.
Yeah, that's
That's a
tough.
good
I mean,
point.
if you go from high school to a construction site, that's I mean, we made
Yeah.
university sound bad. But yeah, university. I mean, this is why I think a Christian university, not to go back into this, but I think people view a Christian university coming out of a Christian high school that we're, you know, so blessed to have. You know, we view the high school as a bubble, and I think if we view the Christian university as an extension of that bubble, I think, you know, there's error there. Like, I don't think, even if, you know, I mean, we talked about creation. If you don't get that question right, is that really a safe bubble to be entering with, you know, thousands of students from all over the place with all different views, and the university not taking a stand on these things? So we know when we go to our high school, elementary schools and high schools, we know what the values are and the beliefs are, because we're very involved in them, like as parents. But then to send your kid to a university, if they are not very intentional about all those questions, it doesn't mean it's bad or wrong. It just means that it's not the bubble you think it is, or, you know, or are being led to believe. And you need to just be aware. Go in with your eyes open, regardless of, you know, what it says on the door, right? So,
But I'm going to say that about our high schools too, because if you're going to say what the divide in the general school, Christian schools that we're parts of all across Canada, all of them are 6-day creation. But if you make the divide between 6-day creation and evolution, they're all 6-day creation. But if you make the divide doesn't matter or does it not matter, you're going to find a lot of our schools do not make it a big point of emphasis. So the result then is that our kids can leave those schools not being prepped to be able to fight on that front, and actually being able to be shook badly on that front, even after 12 years of Christian schooling. So that divide, you know, we have some room to grow there.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Like I said earlier, you got to sharpen those skills young, because the world's coming at you faster than ever. But John, just to go back to the book there, because I think we don't want to skip over that, because I thought it was a pretty interesting discussion at the end there. No, so not an hour or whatever it was wasted. Yeah. What were your thoughts on that? I mean, being the eldest member of this panel, having probably read more books than Tyler and I combined 5 times over. What do you think of
I
that?
loved it. I
Yeah.
loved it. I got it on order. It's coming today. I'm gonna enjoy that. Just the so many. I guess I'll pick my favorite bit that you guys were talking about. and it was the aesthetic dimension. So he had 5 filters, five ways of looking at the world, 5 ways of analogies. I don't know what all a good description for them are. So these are just things that he came up with, but they're just really helpful tools for understanding different things. And one of the filters, or one of the understandings he offered, this wasn't even an analogy exactly, but was just the aesthetic dimension that's all around us. Beauty, art, a baby, just things that are just wonderful. And I will say I have struggled sometime with heaven. Just the battle's done, struggles are done. It seems so much of what we do on earth here, so much of the noble and worthy things that we do are fights, or at least difficult, like you're contesting. And then I thought, well, when we get to heaven, all that's done, isn't it going to be a little bit boring? And well, I know that's not true. God's going to be there, so it's going to be wonderful. So I know I'm wrong, but I'm still curious about how I'm wrong. And so when you guys were talking about the aesthetic dimension, yeah, I can watch kitties forever, just cute little kittens. It's just wonderful. These precious little balls of fur, stared at my baby for forever, right? You mentioned just the chords of a song, you get shivers. Okay, I'm starting to clue in. What's heaven going to be like? There's no fights in that. There's no struggles. There's just wonder and joy and awe. Just what a thing, right? So I really appreciated your guys' discussion on that, because brought light to something I've never had a handle on.
Yeah, I think both of us agreed at the end, like myself and Professor Bailey there, that was our favorite of the 5, because it's just, yeah, man, it's the stuff that gets you going. It just gets you excited for what's to come. But it's funny you mentioned that on the point of being like, quote, like bored by heaven or whatever, because that relates to an episode we did a while back. I did with Bukestein on eschatology, how like you say, we're working in this life, we're trying to like improve things, but we'll never obviously be perfected in this life. But there's a degree to which it will obviously be perfect in the new earth, new heaven, but there'll still be work to do, right? Like there'll still be things that we need to accomplish, and we won't run into sin. But I'm curious if it'll still be difficult to a degree, because there's, like in the struggle, or in like, people always say it's not the destination, it's the journey or whatever, right? Like it's just like we have it every day as we like build our company. Like we're at a stage where it's very busy and there's a lot going on, and we have big plans for where Tyco could go, and it seems crazy at times, but like also that's the stuff that gets you out of bed in the morning. That's the fun part. It's like, how can we build this? That's nuts. And I feel like if it ever got to a point where it was just like, all right, we've completed all we could think to complete, which I don't think will ever happen. If that's what heaven was going to be like, or is going to be like, that would be not so fun. But I think there's always going to be a roadmap forward, and always going to be some degree of struggle, although it's a perfected struggle. It's just a weird concept to think about.
Yeah.
Well, you won't ever be in bed, so then you don't have to worry about getting up in the morning.
That's fair. There better be coffee though.
No bed.
There's no coffee.
No bed. Isn't it a wonderful thing at the end of a hard day? A good or well worked day.
That's only because you're tired.
True.
Yeah, but I don't know if tired isn't sinful. So I don't know that we won't be sleeping and we won't be. What a wonderful thing to just sit back and doze.
It's true. It's true. Good nap, man. Yeah. Right on. Ty, okay, well, we're gonna go down this rabbit hole too long, but did you have any other thoughts other than like the lenses you found interesting, or just the concept?
I mean, I think John touched the big one. That was but yeah, I'd encourage people to go listen to it, because it was and buy the book, honestly.
Yeah.
You got a chance to read the book beforehand, which was which is great for the conversation. So yeah.
It's not as hoity-toity as someone might think if they're listening. They're like, cultural lens or whatever, blah blah blah. There's a little bit of academicness. If that's not really a word, probably, but you know what?
That's the one you want to screw up.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I did not go to university, so there is that.
Yes. Lucas is big in academicness.
Yes, exactly. But no, I think it's actually reasonably simple to read that book and to understand what he's saying. So, but there's just a large degree of depth to it, which makes it a I think a book that'll last a long time and continue to be interesting. So with that, I think we're going to move on to real estate. Like I said, off the hop, they're probably the spiciest of the three. I think we had a pretty good, I would say four-way discussion, but it was more like Rick from Red Deer, Tyler over there, just calling in and giving his opinion to the show because he was the only one virtual. But I think it was a lively discussion. I think we hit some real issues and there's real problems. Yeah, I don't know. John, I'll throw to you first on this one. I think we'll just take it from there because I'm sure we all have some hot takes on this one.
Yeah, there's lots of questions I would have asked them because I was struggling along. I've heard you talk with them before, or was it Brent that you talked with before?
Yeah.
And just to wrap my head around this, and the idea of taking on debt, the idea of just hedging your money with real estate investments. One of the things that I would have loved to explore with them is this idea of how badly the government is kind of messing things up. Pierre Polivier talked just in a recent video about if you were to buy a property in Vancouver, the difference between the land, the labor, just the materials, all of that, and then what you would buy the house for. So the cost of building it versus the cost you pay is more than $1 million, the average house in Vancouver. And that's all just government. The $1 million is all just government. Okay, well, you as an investor are hoping that prices go up, but you as a parent, as I'm going to say just as a Christian, want people to be able to find affordable houses. So there's sort of a perverse situation here where, and I don't mean perverse like sinful, I just mean it's whacked out, that you're investing in something, counting on it going up, because the government's just totally messing with it and they're causing it to keep going up. And so you can kind of count on the government to just keep messing it up and it's going to keep going up, but you should be praying for it to go down so that your kids and your grandkids can actually afford a place to live. Unfortunately, it seems that you've got a safe investment because, what are people going to do? But it is something where if you did get in, you should still be having that prayer. You should almost be praying against your investment. So
yeah, it's like something like investing in Bombardier or GMC or something. Like, they go under every 5 years, but like it's still a good investment.
I had a relative who was using Via Rail, and every ticket that you buy in Via Rail, if you go, if you pay $1,000 for a ticket, the government's also subsidized it at $1,000. So they're feeling, should they be buying a ticket if the government's paying $1,000 for each one? Well, if they didn't go on that train, then it's just $1,000 more that would have cost taxpayers. So I said, on the one hand, don't feel bad about it. There's nothing wrong with you going on the train. And at the same time, if they cut that route, you should not complain because they just saved. They did the responsible thing. They shouldn't be running this at. So it's kind of the same situation where it's like there's nothing with getting in the real estate market. They're making a really good case. It's a stewardly use of your money. You're protecting the investments God's handed off to you. You're protecting the value. But don't ever get that investment. Don't ever have that investment. It's going to give you a temptation for you to want the prices to keep going up. Whereas you can kind of count on them to go up, but you should want them to go down.
Yeah. So the discussion that we had, they actually did an episode on this on their podcast, the Two Steward Show. So people can go listen to that too. But they talked about the morality of investing, and they actually have somebody they work with who thinks it's immoral to invest in real estate, who's very involved with their team. So it's actually a kind of a funny story. But they have this conversation all the time. Is it moral to buy the house? But I mean, you're lowering the supply available, obviously, by buying additional single family homes, and like there's obviously some moral framework around like what are you going to do with it. It's not like you're just buying it and leaving it vacant. I mean, I think that's obviously like ethically that might be worse than renting it out. It's just yeah, like we're in a situation like, yeah, I don't know. My mind kind of goes back to this. Remember we had the talk about abortion and snowflake adoption and stuff? Like it's almost like you're in a situation now that's bad. Now what are you going to do about it? And so like this
Yeah.
investing in real estate's not, it's not like you're creating the environment that we have by doing that. You're living in this environment. So now you're, now what do you do with that as a Christian? Is it more stewardly to invest and like hedge your money or find a place where your money is holding its value, or is it more stewardly to bow out of that system because the corrupt whatever corruption behind it or just the way the government's been dealing with it you don't agree with, or do you make the best of it? Yeah, it's
that's a great analogy, because with a snowflake adoption, you're saving a kid, right? But you want the situation that resulted in this kid needing to be saved to end. And so here you could talk about it saving a house. You buy the house, you put it in good state, get it ready for somebody to rent. You're doing a service.
A lot of times they're actually creating units. Like, so Brent, that's what they do. They buy units and they buy a home that was single family, and then through basically the cities are encouraging higher density. Most cities are now. So he's out of Hamilton, and Hamilton they can put 2 or 3 units in a home, and even in the backyard they've started being able to do that. They call it a garden suite. It's basically like living in a shed. While that's like these units aren't as nice to live in as just a whole main house, like a whole house with a yard and a garage, and they are creating supply in a way. They're creating 3 or 4 dwelling units where there was only 1 before. So this is the goal of the it's kind of weird. It's the goal of the government to do that, and they've been incentivizing people to do that. And so
is that a good goal though?
Sense.
Like that's I don't know if we got into that. I don't remember again, but like, yeah, is it morally or ethically favorable to take a nice a larger home that's meant for a single family that has room for more than like 2 kids or something, let's say, and then turn it into these little shoe boxes where, like, sure, you created more supply and that's good, but, like, I don't know, should Christians be in favor of high density housing? Like, I'm not sure if that's a healthy environment for a family. Like, Christians should encourage families.
Then we shouldn't build condos.
Well,
maybe we gotta think that.
Hey, we make money building condos, so
yeah, it's true.
What we've handed over here, you got to back it up a step and just talk about the incentives. Polivier has his own plans. Pierre Polivier has his own plans for how to fix housing, but they involve his fiddles. He's going to do this and do that and do the other thing. Well, is it the government's business to be trying to incentivize housing builds and all this? They've been trying to incentivize it for decades now, and how are they doing with that? Are they doing a good job of it? Maybe they're not doing a good job of it because it's none of their business. Like when we look at what God's ideas for government, as we see it in the Bible, there's a warning about the king being overarching and being involved in every little thing. Well, there's a lot of involvement here, and what level of expertise can they possibly bring it? Does Justin Trudeau know how to do this, that, and the other thing? Should we expect him to? Should we expect Polivier to? Maybe they could just back off. They could do something like, hey, carbon taxes make everything more expensive. There's something, just do less. Interfere less.
I think that's what Poilievre's going for. But I mean, if you play the devil's advocate, right? Like some people say, well, more regulation is necessary because we need to create these homes in certain spots because we know where people are going. And like if you take for the record, I agree with what you're saying, but just to play devil's advocate, if you take the other side of it, right? Like, where do you stop the no regulation side? Like, do you think the government has a role in regulating like zoning? Like, probably is the answer to that. Like, there's a certain degree of, you can't just be completely like put up whatever you want wherever. No.
So steel mill in your single family home. Let's go.
Exactly right. I mean, maybe that's a better alternative than what we have now. It's possible.
I would look at countries that have that. It's probably not, but yeah, it's no, go
I
ahead.
think if you start with the Bible and start with the idea of this warning against an overarching government, and then you act from there with great humility. So are there instances where we might need some guidance from on top? Perhaps so, but that's not the assumption that we're starting with. We're not starting with humility. We're starting with government as God. They've replaced God. We don't want you, but we still need somebody to run our lives. And so that's the role that we have our current government trying to fill. They are not humble. They know how to do everything. You go listen to Justin Trudeau talking about the housing crisis. He's got it fixed. He knows exactly what to do. But that was 2015. And none of it's come. None of it's done anything. So we just need a really healthy dose of humility on the high levels.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's
But does it not just come back to money supply at the end of the day? Like, it's just the dollars chasing the best spot to go. I think to me, that's the simplest explanation.
So here
that's why
you
we
have a
have
role. Here you have a role where the government has you got into all sorts of aspects of money theory, and I don't want to go too deep because I can't go too deep. But the idea of inflation is too much money chasing too few goods, right? So everything goes up. Otherwise, the shelves are empty and all that. Well, that is something the government's in charge of, and how it's very attractive for them to have their debt diminished, the value of their debt diminished, unless they have variable rate interest on it. But they can make their debt worth less by making your money worth less. So how did they do that? They did it by stealing from you. And maybe I shouldn't use the word stealing, but it's a secret tax on you. And so there's definitely something fundamentally dishonest here.
yeah, they
So
talk
how about
about that,
how about money be worth money? How about we don't have inflation? How about you keep that going?
that's that's why we've had two conversations about this with, I mean, that's one of these things these guys always talk about, because real estate, I mean, they're in the real estate world for a reason, because they understand the money portion of it, and that it's the store of value that you create every day, and where can you put that? If you just hold money in your bank account, you actually lose money every day, which is a weird concept. But then, yeah, what you're talking about, John, with and it's the first time I actually heard it articulated, which is weird because my brother's, Brent, and he always talks about this stuff. Inflating away your mortgage is something that people like count on as a way to do business. Like, they buy an apartment building or something, and they expect that in 20 years, even if they don't pay a dime of it off, they have the exact same mortgage value. That value of the dollar is like half. It could be like, and so then you have half the mortgage on a property that probably increased in value. So you can create money out of thin air by just holding things that hold value instead of cash. So it really does have a lot to do with the government and how they treat money. And yeah, I mean, it's such a deep issue that we got away from the gold standard, but and this is where people are looking for alternatives. So this is where like the Bitcoins of the world enter the conversation, but because there needs to be something that fixes this, that holds these politicians to an account, holds them to account on their policies, because right now they just have a free range to do what they need to do to make their numbers work, and we're all just victims of it.
But that was one of the things one of the gentlemen mentioned, was that real estate's attractive because the dollar isn't. So here again, perverse incentives, like the government is creating the problem with their inflationary policies. So if they could just handle the stuff that they're supposed to handle, like let's have weights and measures, let's just have money be trustworthy. How about start with that? That's in your realm. Do your job.
Yeah, that's pretty well it. It's when they get down into the housing thing, like Polyev too, he's talking about these things. A lot of times the government, the fastest way for them to affect the numbers that people care about because they're on a term, right? They're on whatever. They're only in for a time, so they need to make those numbers look good at certain times of their, they get elected, looks bad, looks good when they're getting reelected. And the best way to do that in housing is to focus on the demand, not the supply. Poilievre's been talking a lot about supply, but when he gets, maybe if he becomes the prime minister, a lot of these like stress tests that they bring in, foreign investment taxes, a lot of things like that are just meant to curb the demand. And we've taken a very liberal view on immigration, which isn't helping demand either. But that side of the equation isn't the whole picture. And they like that because it makes them look good, but it's a way harder problem to solve than just like pretending that people don't need houses when they really do need houses. Like, just because people are willing to live in their parents' basement doesn't mean that's the solution.
No. Yeah, it's almost like if you just look at like the Bible and how that's an anchor for how you can live your life as a Christian. Like, I think the same principle applies to money. If you don't have a money supply pegged to something, it's just free floating, and then it's just like whoever controls the environment in which the money free floats, which in this case, in our country, would be the government of Canada to a degree, then they're going to monkey around with the levers of power on money, because money is how they get elected. Yeah. It's like you say, perverse incentives.
No, and just to bring it home, it is what they need. I mean, this even brings Bailey. He's talking in his book. Dr. Bailey was talking about just bringing holiness that projects. The world needs to hear more from us. Needs to hear more from God's people. Guidance on just trustworthy currency. Well, why does it have to be trustworthy? It's just an arbitrary measure. Well, because you're hurting people who are savers. You're encouraging consumption. Is that something that the Bible is encouraging, just random consumption because your money's not going to be worth anything tomorrow? No. So all these biblical principles are actually the answer to a lot of practical problems that the world has. And then, of course, there is the fundamental problem, most of all, that they need a savior. But bring the total package. Let's talk about God has the answers to big, huge, the problem, and also all these other things too.
Very true. John, do you remember off the top of your head here that economics book you gave me a while back? Short little, I believe it was blue.
Yeah,
Who's the
I know
fellow
it was
who wrote
David
that?
Bahnsen, but I can't remember. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll link David Bahnsen in his book in the profile for this episode, because he's got some good thoughts on inflation and currency and exactly what we're talking about here. So. Okay, well, I feel like we could make another episode on the real estate one, because it's so interesting. It's so impactful for, I would say the majority of the listeners of this show, especially if you're trying to get in or you've gotten in and you're facing high mortgage rates or whatnot. So yeah, hang in there, people. It's rough, but we'll get through it. All right. So John, you had a couple plugs you want to make in terms of picture books for RP, if you want to go ahead with that.
Yeah, I'll just be quick. I know that Christmas is coming up, and a lot of people are looking for good presents to give. Grandparents, parents looking for what they can give their kids. And there are just so many wonderful books out there. And I'm thinking particularly with the younger kids, so many wonderful picture books out there. There are also so many really, really horrible books out there. So I just finished an article on the Caldecott list, which the Caldecott Medal is the award given in the US to what's supposed to be the best picture book of the year. It's been given since 1938, so there's 80 some of these, and each year they also have some honorees, anywhere from 2 to 6. So the total list of medal winners and honorees is something like 400. I looked through all of these and I found about 150 to recommend. So if you go to reformedperspective.ca/books, you can find that list. You'll find something lovely for your kids, for your grandkids. If you have some younger readers, there's also a list up there of wordless books, which can be just really fun for the pre-readers. And for older teens and all that, we got recommendations including about 50 graphic novels that are well beyond, if you're thinking like Archie Andrews or something like that. You can learn history, you can learn economics, you can learn all sorts of things from a really, really great graphic novel. And again, these are the good ones. There are so many. This is the domain of LGBT nowadays. So don't just go looking for a graphic novel. Go check out our recommendations. And I'll finish with just the books we have on reformedperspective.ca books are recommendations. So we don't cover everything, but we have hundreds of books up there, and they're all ones that we think somebody will love.
Awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. Is I got young kids, and lots of picture books in the house, and they love them. Not quite reading yet, but just reading stories to them. You realize like some of them are easy to avoid, the ones that you know are going to be terrible just based on the cover. But there was like one I was reading that was just flat out communist, and I was like, that's interesting. Like, fun story also. Like, good thing the kids, are 4 and 3 and not, 7, because this is not teaching good work ethic and things, So yeah.
No, my daughter came home with one from the picture book section called Princess Boy. I didn't notice at the time. I just saw a picture of a princess on the cover, and it was a boy in a dress doing ballet, and that's her first exposure to transgenderism at 5 or 4 or whatever it was. So
they're coming for your kids.
Yeah. So with these kind of lists too, whether you buy them as presents, you can also just take it to your online reservation at your public library and just go crazy. Because they're Caldecott winners, your library is liable to have lots and lots of these.
Okay.
That's good to know.
Fantastic.
Well, public libraries are a disaster, but we need something to go get.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we'll link that list below so listeners can check that out. So yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of the show here. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, you can always email us at the email link below in the show notes. And stay tuned for a couple of interesting episodes coming up, like I mentioned, with RP's very own Mark Penninga, and we have some coming up with a couple of the fellows from ARPA regarding their fall tour, and Ty sat down with 2 gentlemen from Faith to Film, talking about their passion for creating film as Reformed Christians in that industry. So, which is a tough one to do. So, looking forward to all 3 of those. Stay tuned, and that's it for now. So, keep having a real talk.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Just a quick shout out to our sponsor for this episode, Redeemer University. You could check them out at redeemer.ca. Thanks to them for making this episode possible.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Real Talk. We really appreciate you taking the time to listen or watch the show. If you want to send us your feedback, and we'd love to hear it, please email us at reformedrealtalk@gmail.com. If you want to find us online or social media, we got a lot of great content there. Just search Reformed Real Talk and we should come right up. This show is created and produced by myself, Lucas Holtfluer, and Tyler Vanderwood, and our wonderful podcast manager who does all the editing is Mariah Tamiga. So we're really thankful for her contribution to the show as well. That's all for now, folks. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll catch you next time.